This is Support is Sexy, episode 23 with private chef and cookbook author Bren Herrera. Welcome to the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, producer, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I talk to women entrepreneurs who share their journeys and the true stories of their wins and their lessons and give you insight and inspiration to take your business and your life to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I am thrilled to have you here because you know it just would not be the same without you. So today we have Miss Bren Herrera. Bren is someone I met years ago. I think we said 2008, maybe 2010, when I was director of digital at Latina.com. And I either brought her in or brought her back on as an editor for the food section. Bren is a fantastic writer. She always has been. And she had a blog called Flamboyant Eats, which is all about flan and the many ways you can cook it, but also she had a ton of other recipes. And this was something that she naturally learned, naturally acquired from being in the kitchen with her mom. And she comes from a strong Cuban family with great heritage and with the commitment to preserving their culture. So all of that has translated into the business that Bren has created, which is a food business around writing, around television appearances. She's been on the Today Show and Univision and several other channels discussing food or cooking food or showing recipes. And this fall, she is releasing a cookbook of more than 100 recipes for modern pressure cooking because she is the queen of pressure cooking. So I loved having Bren on the show. She and I go way back. And within this episode, we talked about the business of food. So what Bren talks about is why consistency is key when delivering your message and when crafting your content. The secret to getting more people to visit your website. And we talked about why you should never delete content from your blog or website. So if you have a blog or website, you want to listen to this. Don't get married, Bren says, to what you think is best for you. And she had a great nugget to share about that. Also, the importance of having an exploratory phase where you feel things out, see how it goes for you, and see if this is the direction you're supposed to move. And one of the other things Bren talks about is why your support circle needs to evolve as you evolve. And you know we're all about support around here because support is sexy. So I know you're going to love this. It's a lot of fun with great information. So without further ado, Bren Herrera. So Bren, thank you so much for joining us on an episode of Support is Sexy.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here and can't wait to check out who the other sisters are that are supporting the sexy effort.
So I have to ask you, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
You know, I think I came out of my mother's womb with an entrepreneurial spirit, honestly. If I have to go back and think about what I said to myself at 5 years old that I wanted to do with my life, which was at the time very much kind of what I'm doing now, which was entertain people. I was very clear to myself, or clear with myself at 5, that I was going to entertain. And
Why
so when you entertain people,
how did you know that?
I have to say that Whitney Houston was very much a part of that. I was mesmerized by her and I would watch her videos, and I very much resonated with this light-skinned singer with curly hair, dancing. And I can't remember the name of the very exact song. I mean, it might come to me down the line, but I think it was "I Want to Dance with Somebody." Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
she had the big blondish kind of hair.
Big blondish hair. Yeah. So I could be making this up, but from my heartfelt recollection, when I was 5 or so, I remember sitting or laying down, honestly, in my parents' living room watching MTV and VH1 when videos were actually still there.
Right.
And just in love with her and saying, I want to do that. I want to sing and I want to rock my curly hair and entertain people. And so if you understand now that entertaining works very much as an entrepreneur, you're not necessarily bound to working for somebody else. I think I knew then that that's what I wanted to do, that I was going to be an entrepreneur some way, somehow.
Right. Now, you were born in Cuba, right?
Yeah, I was born in Cuba.
And grew up in D.C. or the D.C. area?
Yep, the D.C. area. This is home, the D.C. area.
When did you come to D.C.? How old were you?
I was almost 6.
Oh,
That was
okay. So
almost, I was 6.
You were in Cuba for a while.
No, no, no. We ended up, the very stereotypical narrative of the Cuban person is that you leave Havana and you go to Miami because that's where, it's closest to Cuba and where a lot of people first made their homes or established their homes. And then, we branched off, but Cuba is very close to Miami, as you may know. And so a lot of Cuban immigrants ended up in Miami, which is where we ended up for a couple of years before we made our way to DC.
Okay. Now, what was it like growing up, Bren, in Cuba and Miami and DC? We know that you were into Whitney Houston, but what were you like as a little girl?
Well, Cuba, I don't honestly remember much because I was months old when we left. I was a little over a year. And in Miami, I don't remember much about Miami either, other than having a very, very cultural childhood. In that, my parents were still trying to acclimate to this whole American culture and trying to figure out what the American dream was.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my mother didn't speak English at the time. My father was working 4 jobs, but my mother was very, how can I say it? She was very determined with her very limited knowledge of English and very limited knowledge and understanding of the American culture. She was very determined to give us, at the time only 3 of us, very determined to give us a very American experience to the extent that she could. So, no English inside the home. We had to speak Spanish inside the house and only Spanish inside. And that was a way to preserve our culture. So our birthday parties were very much Cuban.
Right.
Big, big cakes with a lot of decorations and a lot of characters on them, and the piñatas and a lot of the Cuban and Caribbean food that you see at parties today. So they were very cultural experiences at home up until we moved to DC.
I think that's interesting because some people, some generations, they don't have their kids speak Spanish in the home. I guess it goes both ways depending on where you're from. Some people say because they want the kids to become quote unquote American, they don't speak. But your mom was right. Your mom was very determined to make sure that part of you was maintained.
She sacrificed her knowledge of English and her picking up the English language articulately so that we could speak fluent Spanish. And so again, at home, it was only Spanish 100% of the time because she figured with perfect reason that we were going to learn English anyway. And we did in school. So that was one of her major sacrifices for our benefit.
Who are some of your greatest influences growing up?
I would say my mother, for sure. Her resilience and her determination, and just her relentless effort at accomplishing anything. I mean, my mom is the epitome of a hustler. I'm talking about somebody who was not college educated, did not speak the language, but she would be on the corner every Friday selling fried potato balls, and they are delicious. And so there are these tennis-sized ball potatoes that are stuffed with picadillo, and they're twice fried. And she and a girlfriend named Gloria, I remember Gloria, she was so sweet. They would stand at the very same corner every Friday and sell these potato balls for $2. And that was her hustle. And if it was summertime when my sister and I were out of school, we would be right there with her. Not necessarily cooking because we were too young, but we would be on the corner, while my mom and Gloria, hustled these potato balls.
And that was a version, certainly, of entrepreneurship or hustle, as you said.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she was working for herself. She didn't have a job per se. She didn't have a 9 to 5, if you will. But so her job was to come up with creative ways of, bringing in income to the household and supporting my father.
What do you think made her decide to do that, to sell sell the potato balls? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, these little fried potato balls. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you remember? You may have been too young, but I wonder what it was that she was like, I'm going to go out on the corner and sell these. I can make some money doing these, and Gloria needs to come with me.
I think it was, without really knowing the backstory, but I think, again, knowing my mom now, I think it was wanting to be home with us. At the time, it was 4 children. She was very young. She was only 32, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so at 32, with 4 children, not having a college education, very limited English, not knowing this American culture, I think that she felt it was the best thing she could do to, again, honor her culture, but also advance her ability to provide the best she could for us. So if she went to school or if she went to a 9 to 5 job, she would then have to provide daycare for 5 children, and she didn't
Right.
have the money for that. So what was the answer? I have to go do this for myself. I have to go work for myself. And working for myself at the time for her meant using her assets, which was food.
Now, what role did cooking play in your upbringing or influencing you? It certainly was a part of your family life, but what role did that play for you as a young child?
I've said this many, many times again, and if anybody has ever followed my journey over the last 10 to 12 years, food for me is kind of like the core and the basis of all understanding, because everything happens in the kitchen. And that's literally a quote that I have used everywhere. Carson Daly, like to say, has actually said it too. For Bren, everything happens in the kitchen. And that's how I grew up. Political debate happened in the kitchen. Crying happened in the kitchen. Doing my hair happened in the kitchen. Cutting my brother's hair and giving them a shape up happened in the kitchen. But there was always food on the stove. And so there was always all this positive, happy energy in the kitchen. So regardless of what was happening socially, food was always being cooked. And so I was always connected to food. On some level, food was always there. It was always interwoven with anything that we were doing. And then seeing how food made people feel, friends that came over, coworkers that my father invited over, our personal friends coming over from school, just kind of seeing how everybody walked away feeling not only physically full, but spiritually full from my mom's food, definitely made an impact in my life and, my decision to go into food.
Right. I was going to say, so it made a connection for you before you even knew how to cook, just because it was there, and the not spiritual aspect, but like you said, it made people feel full, not just from eating, but also from being around everyone.
Yeah, my mom cultivated a really beautiful environment where everybody was welcome. She always offered somebody or anybody food to eat, at minimum some coffee. And so, yeah, just being around an environment where that was fostered, and that sense of community and that sense of family, regardless of whether you were blood family or not, that was very important to her. So yeah, when people walked away, the being spiritually fed was a matter of, they walked away knowing that they had a really positive, happy experience in our home.
And music was also a big part of your upbringing too. I mean, I know you talked about Whitney Houston, but you were classically trained cello. You played the
Yes,
cello,
yeah,
right?
cellist.
And vocal. Yes.
So back to your point about who influenced me, my grandfather on my dad's side was a major influence in a very quiet way that I've never really spoken about, to the extent that he was very spiritually grounded, a very committed man of God, and a self-taught musician in various instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And he used his instruments for the Lord. And so my grandfather always said to me, Brendita, play your cello. Make sure that you practice. You can't get better if you don't practice. And so he was the very first, he was my first experience with music, in that he wrote all of his songs. He composed over 150 songs, I believe, by the time he died. Yeah, very beautiful music. It was all very romantic and very happy. And
was this for the cello also, or how did you choose the cello? Was that because of your grandfather?
No. I chose the cello because I was always that rebel, right? So when the music department came, or when the county music people came to third grade, introducing third graders to music, everybody went for the violin and the piano. And there was this one cello that nobody went to. And it was much bigger than I, and it attracted me. And I sat down and I played it, and I loved the tonality. I loved the warmth in it. I loved that it was full bodied and nobody else went to it. And so I went to the one instrument that nobody wanted, and I fell in sheer love with this instrument. And that was in third grade.
Wow. And now, did you ever consider a career in music?
I did. And so
I mean, I know
food
you
for me,
traveled the world too, right? So it was singing and in the
yeah.
U.S. and Europe and all of that. So
Yeah, isn't it funny how life turns out? Like you don't really end up where you think you're going to end up all the
never.
time.
Exactly.
Ever. Girl, I'm trying to tell you, I really thought that I was going to be this like superstar singing,
I'm saying that's
play
why I
my
asked,
stuff.
like, what happened to the music thing? You're
Oh,
trained.
no.
You've been doing
I'm
it
so
since
glad you
third grade.
recognize it. I've realized that that's just not what God had for me. And it's okay to come to that understanding and just say, okay, Lord, what do you have for me? And if music wasn't the thing for me, then what do you have for me? And if you have it for me and it was not part of my plan, then I'm going to have to trust that you have it figured out and it's going to work because it was not part of my plan.
Right.
So the music thing, yeah, I classically trained on the cello. I classically trained vocally. Um, I played in different orchestras growing up. I played with different ensembles growing up. I moved to Atlanta with the very intention of pursuing a music career, to get a label to sign me on, to do, R&B, Latin funk. And I accomplished that for the first, I would say, 2 years that I was down there. And I sang at different clubs in Atlanta and throughout the
Mm.
city. Loved it. I did some solo stuff. I did some group stuff. And then I ended up going overseas with my uncle's jazz and gospel ensemble, to do Negro spirituals, to do Cotton Club era music, to do covers of R&B music from the 70s. And that was all amazing.
I
And
was going to say,
we
what an
used to,
amazing experience. Even though you didn't go into it as a career, that's still an experience you'll always have.
oh yeah, that's the one thing that I will say just brought complete joy to my heart. Like to stand in an audience or stand on a stage where you have captivated the attention of 10,000 people and all they want to do is hear you sing,
Wow.
and they want more. And so their ovation is just like more and more and more. Like that was just, I can't ever explain it unless you've been on stage and unless you've sang in front of 1,000 or more people, you really won't know. But it wasn't paying the bills, girl.
I was
It was
going to
not.
say, what happened? It sounds splendid.
Not paying the bills. Yeah, it wasn't paying the bills, and it definitely wasn't capturing the attention of the labels that I wanted to be attached to
Yeah.
in Atlanta. And it kind of fell apart, not intentionally. It wasn't a decision that I woke up one day and said, I'm not going to sing anymore.
Hmm.
It was more of the food presented itself very aggressively,
In what way
and
do you mean?
um, somebody said, "Hey, B, I think you would be really good on TV doing food and cooking. And you love food and you do love to cook." And in fact, I was cooking very casually on the side, but not professionally and not intentionally
For
to
other
make a
people,
career out
like
of it.
parties or entertaining
Yeah.
kind of thing. So people knew you were good at cooking and you enjoyed entertaining.
Yeah, people knew that I was good at entertaining and people knew that I loved to cook and that I loved to host dinner parties. And so a few select people saw that and thought that it would be good enough to share with me that I could go out and explore that. And I prayed about it. I very much realized that the music wasn't, going in the direction that I wanted it to. And so I asked God to, be very clear with me and where I needed to go. And the food it happened very aggressively. It was very much in my face without me going after it. And so for me, it was confirmation that this was the journey that I now needed to take myself along. And it has worked, honestly.
Yeah, it definitely has worked. Now, you said it was in your face, but did you not? It was in your face at the time, but did it take someone from the outside mentioning it to you or sort of poking you like, I think you'd be good at this? Because I know that happens with a lot of us sometimes. That thing we're doing naturally or that we really love or whatever could be an opportunity, but because we're focused on something else, we don't see it.
1,000%, I can tell you that it was somebody on the outside that had no intimate connection to my life or intimate understanding of what I really wanted to do, tell me, hey, B, I think that you would really excel in this space.
Mm-hmm.
And I regarded what they said because it still fell within the realm of entertaining. It still fell within the realm of doing something for people and sharing one of my talents with people. And so I didn't dismiss it. I don't think that it was a crazy idea, but it was definitely not my idea of what I wanted to do.
Right. And then, like you said, you took a minute to think about it, pray about it, meditate
Yeah.
about it, and decide if it was the right thing. And I think that's,
I definitely, yeah, I
yeah,
definitely prayed about it. It was definitely a priority prayer for me.
I think it's interesting too what you said about not only someone mentioning something that you didn't necessarily see in front of you, but also that you decided to be open to it. Like, okay, let me see. You were able to receive it, I guess, in that moment is what I'm saying. Because sometimes we can be so focused on that thing that we really think we want it to do, or I guess more so that that you were open to the idea of I want to do entertainment or entertaining, and this could be a way of doing that. So it didn't. I always tell people about letting go of the of how things are going to happen or how you're going to do something. This was a different way of entertaining for you.
Oh, it was completely a different way. And yeah, to your point of receiving, like it all happened very fast. Like I remember that this one person said something in the summer of 2007, literally July of 2007. And by January 2008, I already had the blog up. I was already invited on Fox Good Day in Atlanta to do some live cooking, which was my first time ever being on camera, to do food.
Right.
It literally all happened in a matter of 6 months in terms of from the moment somebody placed that proverbial, bug in my ear to it actually manifesting itself to some online presence or an online presence.
Once you shifted your focus. Now, did it feel
Yeah.
like how difficult or not was it to make the transition from music? Were you sort of already in that space? Like, I'm looking for something else because this isn't working out how I want to.
No, not at all. I was still very much I was still very much in music. I was still recording. I was still performing. And I think I even had one more trip overseas during this whole, I wouldn't even say transition phase. It was much more of a exploratory phase that I was going through. Yeah. So, yeah, because I hadn't fully transitioned, into cooking or digital media. It was very much more of an exploratory. Let me see if this actually can work or if I'm even going to like it. So I still had one more big gig in Spain to do while all of this was happening. So yeah, music was still there. It was still very much an active part of my work and what I was doing.
Now, you went to college and studied political science, right, at University of Virginia?
I did. I sure did. I studied poli-sci.
Was this before you went on tour, or was this after? This was before. This was after.
This was before.
Before you went on tour and did those things. Now, you were a lawyer for a short time or worked at a law firm. I know that's in there somewhere. When did that happen?
Yeah, so I studied, and one thing I could reiterate to anybody listening and to, women that are contemplating career changes and career moves and not sure if, the next thing that they have in mind or that's been placed on their heart is the right thing for them. I will say that I am a testament to not being married to something you think is best for you. Because if you're a believer, you know that God will always show you what's best for you. And he always, unequivocally, no matter how smart you think you are, and no matter how perfectly refined your blueprint is, his blueprint is always better and perfect. Let me tell you, I wanted to be a lawyer, in addition to this entertaining. I knew that if entertainment wasn't going to work out for me, that practicing law was another strong suit. I love speaking and I love debating. I love deducing and I love legal rhetoric. And so when I went to college, realizing that perhaps, entertaining on the scale that I wanted to perhaps wasn't going to happen, I was like, I'm going to be an attorney. And so, yeah, I went to UVA. I studied political science. And I applied to law school, got into several schools, and started a law program at Georgetown. And then realized through that program that, let me go to work. Let me make some money before I commit to 3 years of law school and potentially come out with $150,000 worth of debt and see if this is really what I want to do. And I'm so glad that I took that time off to work, because I realized in that time working as a paralegal that I didn't want to come out with $150,000 worth of debt to end up wanting to explore something else anyway. And so, yeah, that time working as a paralegal in corporate is when I really started going back to my roots of entertaining and being creative and, entertaining people, whether it was through fashion or music or cooking. So I definitely don't regret not having, gone back to law school. Not at all. I don't regret it.
I feel like that's interesting. It seems like the exploratory phase is sort of such a part of your journey, because even with that, you thought about, well, let me go see and work for a little while and explore this and see if this is really what I want to do. You don't seem to be afraid to do that.
No, I don't. I couldn't tell you why. I mean, yeah, if I have to, go back and think about the different things that I've done over the last 15 years, probably a butterfly spirit, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I find myself attracted to a lot of different things, but I know what works for me. And so I can think that I want to land as a butterfly on different flowers, but there's going to be that one flower that really nurtures that spirit and really helps me highlight and be the best that I could be in what I do. So I know for me now that the entertaining is very much the platform of TV through cooking.
And you have to have a certain amount of trust for yourself, and like you said, in a higher power in your situation, that you'll end up on the right flower, so to speak.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't question it. Do we get frustrated? Yeah, because you've been doing this for a certain amount of time and you've put your work in and you've hustled so hard and you feel like you've proven yourself and things haven't, manifested or they haven't come to full fruition. But that doesn't mean that your journey is not over. That just means that you still have some work to do.
Right.
And I may not know what that work is, but I know that there is still work to do. And so that'll then, put me into another exploratory phase where I'm like, okay, where can I reinvent, or what can I add on to what I'm doing now to make it better, or to make it different, or to make it more appealing, or to keep up with the trend and the changes? Because as you know, things have changed over the last 10 years.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. Even the last 3 years, digital has changed so much, and it's so difficult to keep up with the new trends and the new expectations,
It's so true. To keep up, or to decide, I know in my case, to decide if you want to keep up or go in the same direction that everything else is going, or try something new, which is what I'm doing here. Like, there's a different way to get your voice out there, a different way to connect with people, just exploring, like you said.
No, yeah, and I don't think we should ever, I think it would be a disservice to ourselves if we ever try to keep ourselves in a box, in a cube that is very limited.
What was your breakthrough moment as a private chef? Because eventually you made that transition from the music into entertaining, but becoming a private chef. And as you said, setting up a blog. And when did you realize that, okay, this is that thing and this is going to be my quote unquote business?
2008, so I had already been cooking privately while I was working in law for a couple of bigger names in the DC area. I was doing like cocktail parties for them, etc.
Like catering?
No, when I say catering, I would like literally like really swanky, fancy soirees for like the who's who of DC. They would call me and be like, we want a cocktail party. So can you make really great cocktails, or can you do appetizers that fit this particular crowd? They only eat certain foods. And so not catering, but literally customizing these menus for private parties, really nice high-end private parties. And it wasn't anything that I would advertise. It was just something that my inner circle within law knew that I did. So in 2008, when I was invited to cook on Good Day Atlanta for New Year's, and the theme was, how do Black people celebrate New Year's? I was brought on with somebody else to, share how we celebrate. So, the Black Eyed Peas, the walking around the neighborhood. For Cuban people, we do cassava root or yuca and plantains and black beans and rice. And so as an immediate result of that appearance, I was contacted and asked to do a dinner party for 2 separate families in Atlanta within 4 weeks of that appearance. And it went off so well it was a 50th birthday party for this couple and all of their friends. That particular gig then, through word of mouth, opened up the opportunity for other gigs where I was doing private cooking. So not catering, but rather, developing menus and small events for people.
Right. Personal, private events for people at their homes, exactly. Or if they rent out a place. Very nice. Now, how important was it? We mentioned the blog, Flamboyant Eats. That was in what year? 2008,
yeah.
Oh, so everything was right after. So you started, got everything up and going like a year. You did say it was shortly after. You really meant right after. Okay. Yeah. So how important was it for you to have your quote unquote voice out there? Like, what made you think I need to set up a blog, or instead of just focusing on the events and being a private chef?
I don't. At the time in 2008, I had already started a blog in 2005 where I was doing a lot of like lifestyle and travel and fashion and music, and so that blog was just there as a creative way of expressing myself and staying in contact with my friends that were in DC and other parts of the country while I was in Atlanta. So when I was invited to do the Good Day Atlanta, I was like, okay, I want these people to get to know who I am if I want to get work, right? So I need some kind of online presence. And I immediately bought the domain Flamboyant Eats. There was no content on there when I went live on TV January 1st.
But you had it up at least.
But I had it up. And within a matter of a week, I worked very hard, very diligently to get content up. And if you go back, I'm not going to invite any of you to go back to January, February 2008 on my website. But if you go back, I mean, the writing was it was fun and edgy and cheeky, far from how I write now. And the pictures were so ratchet. I mean, the pictures were so bad. I mean, the pictures
Isn't it
were
funny
so bad.
To look back on that stuff like, oh my God, look at what I was doing back then. And I thought it was, or you were just trying to make it happen or trying to do it. They say, it reminds me of that quote from the CEO of LinkedIn. I'm going to butcher it, but it's something like, if you're not embarrassed by the time you launch, you waited too long.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. And it's so true. I mean, and the reason I haven't taken that content down now, honestly, is so that I could go back and reference that and be like, this is how far I've come, or this is how much I've grown. Or for somebody who's new to writing or blogging or being a digital influencer, for them to be able to go back and, read some of my very first stuff and then see that for themselves, they can grow. But it's there's a process and there's a journey for them to go on in order to get to that point.
Yeah, that's so good. It's so funny because it's such a temptation, or I'll speak for myself. I won't project this on you. Yeah. Even with doing this podcast, it's only been I guess 10 episodes or so, or probably 15 will be up by the time yours goes up. And there'll be things that I see in the first one, like, oh, I forgot to do. It could be a small, how writers are, a small thing like, oh, I didn't put a colon in there, or oh, I forgot to put this number, and I want to go back and fix it. But it's not really wrong. It's just for me. But there's that thing of wanting to go back and make it better from the past, but you have to be present and keep moving forward. How much time can we really invest in fixing something that we did, 8 years ago? Exactly.
Is it worth it? Is it not worth it?
I mean, people
aren't. Is it not? Yeah. So,
like you said, you grow. You got to keep getting better with each day. You get better. You get better.
Funny you mentioned that, and no lie. In fact, you could even verify this if you go to any of my social outlets today. I literally edited both pictures and the text of a blog post that I published in 2009. Now, tell me.
Why? Well, unless you were updating it because it's some different information, but if it just bothered you so much you went back, you're doing wrong.
No. So I'll tell you this. This is why you don't ever take information down from your website, no matter how old and crazy it may sound and read. The blog post was on a very relevant, related food topic that has everything to do with my upcoming book. So I needed that content to be a little fresher, a little more vibrant. I needed the pictures. Yeah. So it just so happens that I was thinking of something to share related to the book, and this particular recipe came to mind. And so I went back to it and I edited it. I didn't completely rewrite it, but I just, I cleaned it up a little bit.
No, that's different because you're going to utilize that and it's a refresh. It's not like you're going back starting in 2008. Like, I'm going to rewrite everything.
No. And so again, I did not bother rewriting it. No, indeed.
Yeah, just a refresh.
just a refresh, just an update, just cleaning it up a little bit so that it's still, relevant today.
Yeah, that's so funny.
But I did put it out there on social with a disclaimer. This is an oldie but goodie. Like this thing is so old.
Right. And also, just so everybody knows, as a side note, for people who do have blogs or work in digital, you kind of don't want to take things down, or not even kind of, you don't want it to take things down because of search, and it might be linked on other sites and all that stuff. So you don't want it to go to a quote unquote dead page on your website. You'd have to do redirects and all this other technical stuff we won't get into, as you know. But, so there's another reason now, especially in the digital age, not to take those things down, sort of like either refresh it or update it or just leave it alone. So now what kind of opportunities began to open up? Well, people were already seeing your blog, like you said, so you kind of were already having those opportunities. It sounds like more from word of mouth, but how did it lead to things like being on the Today Show and doing, Univision and doing all of these different things? How did those things come about? Because I know it's not as simple as everyone may think.
Yeah, it doesn't. It really doesn't happen overnight, like some people say. And that old cliche, success. What you and I see as a new artist on TV, trust and believe, they have been putting their work in for a long time.
They say 10 years to be an overnight success.
Yeah, 10 years to be an overnight success. I'm looking at 11 at this point. I'm looking at 11, but to put it in simple terms, just consistency on the blog and continuously being creative and just continuously being creative with what I was sharing and what my platform was sharing with people helped me get to the place where people like the Today Show saw me and invited me to come on. But I would say, and I think I've mentioned this to you before in other conversations, that consistency is so key, because if you're not consistent, you're losing your authoritative voice. If you're a bona fide expert in what you do, you're going to be pushing information out and sharing information out consistently and constantly anyway. Mm-hmm. It's what you do if you're an expert. You have new information to share. And so with that consistency, your name and your brand stays out there, and the higher the chances are for, bigger outlets or bigger people to see you and really want to engage you so that you can share on their platforms what it is that you're doing.
Right.
And so, for me, in addition to the consistency, my niche was one that I was very careful in cultivating, in that here's this Afro-Latina woman, very intimately connected to my roots, but also sharing my food in a very modern way that appealed to everybody, not just Latinos. Latin people know my food, but I wanted to appeal to people that don't know Latin food. And so how could I still remain very true to my culture, but also reinvent it in a way that everybody would like it and want to get to know it and love it? And so I think I've done that in a way with several of my different dishes that have gained attention and some, really nice and fun reviews from different outlets, print, online, TV, etc.
And people just seeing that work, like you said, that you did, and then approaching you about it and making sure that your work is out there and speaking for itself, really.
Right. And also doing something different. So nobody had taken the concept of flan and cooking it in a pressure cooker. Nobody had done that online. And so here I took this delicate, beautiful, egg custard and made it in a pressure cooker, which everybody, has these preconceived notions of being an X, Y, and Z device, cooking vessel. And so here's this young person making this really delicate, beautiful dessert in a pressure cooker. And not only has she done it in the pressure cooker, but now she has 50 desserts or 50 different flavors. And so that in and of itself was something different and unique. And so that also, drew attention.
So two things. One, what made you think to put it in a pressure cooker? But also with being consistent, is that just so people have an idea if someone else is starting out or wanting to do a similar type of business? Consistent meaning do something every day or put content out every day, or consistent meaning you say every Wednesday I'm going to do, et cetera? Because I think people get sometimes overwhelmed at this idea of consistent, and it can look, I think, different ways. But what do you think?
Right. So for me, I think keeping an editorial calendar is very important. And I will say, for purposes of transparency and disclosure, I've not been the best at keeping one in the last year. But when I have kept editorial calendars, that has allowed me to stick to a more consistent schedule of posting. So on Mondays, I know that I wanted to be more lighthearted and speak to, the challenges of the week and how can we address those challenges. I'm giving you an example. Wednesdays is a really high posting day. And so Wednesdays would be the day that I wanted to post something that was very delicious or very entertaining or very interesting so that it would get more eyeballs and more clicks. And then on Fridays, people do less reading on Fridays, but you want to give them something that is still equally attractive and appealing, but doesn't require much of their attention. So as I developed this calendar and as I developed a way to get people engaged with me on a consistent basis, I did Flan Fridays. And that really worked for me for a couple of years. So every Friday, I published a new flan recipe, and it was always hashtag Flan Fridays. And so my readers knew that every Friday they could find a new flan flavor with a recipe and a beautiful picture on the website. And it didn't always have a recipe, but it always had a beautiful picture.
Right.
And so that allowed me, it allowed me to hold myself accountable to publishing something every Friday. Mm-hmm. And it also gave my readers, the knowledge or the understanding that she's consistent, and every Friday she's going to have something for us to check out.
I love that. And that's a great example.
That worked for me so well. I haven't kept up with Flan Friday. I kept up with it for about 3.5 years, and it was
that's a long time.
Amazing. Yeah. It kept up. I mean, it kind of worked for itself, and I was always eager to, go back in the kitchen and, come up with like the next sexiest flan flavor and combination. And just, the reaction and response I would get from people that was also really inspiring. People wanted to see more. And so that would put me back in the kitchen. And it also got me a lot of, press. People would be really, curious, like, why 40 flavors? Why 50 flavors? And how do you come up with all these flavors? But I will say it has become a little more difficult to keep up with that theme, only because honestly, how many flan flavors can I come up with before you start?
3 years is pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I haven't officially retired it, but I haven't updated a new flan recipe. I mean, there are plenty of recipes on the site now.
Exactly. Yeah. Plenty of recipes, great product recommendations, and some of that. There's so much good stuff there. But that 3 years is a long time. I know magazines that haven't done sort of quote unquote franchises for that long. That's good. I'm okay. I'm okay with giving it up and, every now and then featuring something or even, refreshing it, but definitely not on a weekly basis of doing a new recipe for flan. And now with the pressure cooker, you don't have to tell me exactly. I'm not a great cook, as we may have discussed. But what made you decide to do that? Was it just the idea of wanting to do something different or come up with something different to present to your reader or your audience?
No, so pressure cooking. Earlier in the conversation, we talked about, everything for me happening in the kitchen and what influence did the cooking have for me. My mother, that's pretty much how she that's how she learned how to cook, was using the pressure cooker. And she naturally transferred that to me and encouraged me to learn how to use the pressure cooker. And I was naturally also very curious. And I wanted to know how to use the pressure cooker because she would crank out so many meals in a very short amount of time. And she was feeding a lot of people. It's 5 of us and my dad, so it's 7 of us total. And the pressure cooker really allowed her to do a lot of food in a very short amount of time. And so I just naturally became more and more inquisitive, and she taught me. And the more and more I got to know the pressure cooker and how to use them, I realized that, there were so many things that you could do in them, including the flan. And so I also realized that the pressure cooker was not popular and it was not trendy. And there was a very unfair, negative stereotype attached to the pressure cooker because there were accidents involved, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And that was largely due to user error, rather. Excuse me. So I wanted to dispel that. And I felt that I was in a really good position to use my platform and my expertise to dispel that and really reinvigorate this beautiful technique of cooking that could save so much time in the kitchen and really get people excited about cooking again. Because, one of the reasons that, and you could answer me this because you don't cook a lot, do people not cook as often as they'd like to because it takes so much time, and they just, are tapped out with resources or tapped out with creative ways of, cooking chicken. Like, how many ways can you cook chicken?
Right.
Or again, just not knowing the basics in the kitchen. And so I really wanted to dispel all of those notions and let women know that you can cook, and you can cook in a short amount of time, and you can cook healthy foods if you cook in a pressure cooker, because it does this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. And I've been on this very intentional journey to get people excited about pressure cooking and teaching you all that I can about it, because I love it, and there are so many benefits to it outside of just the time savings.
I see. You're an advocate for the pressure cooker.
I am an advocate for the pressure cooker. I love that thing.
Now, would you say with your business, the primary way, without, of course, definitely don't reveal any numbers or revenue, but the primary way that you have built it into a business is working with clients and then working with brands, and then you do a lot of travel, so writing about different destinations. Like, how does it all come together?
Yeah, so the blog now serves me as it's my digital face, if you will. It's where I'm able to let people know that I'm there, that I'm present. This is what I do. I tell stories as it relates to food. I tell stories as it relates to traveling, getting to know the world through food. It's the place where you can come get some cultural anecdotes on, the African diaspora through the Caribbean, or, food politics. And so my blog doesn't necessarily bring me direct income because I don't advertise on my blog. I've never advertised on the blog. I've not done buy-ins. However, through my relationships with brands that have gotten to know me through the blog, I work as a TV spokesperson for brands. And so I'll take their product and I'll develop recipes, or I'll develop concepts. And then I'll go on TV and demonstrate that. And then I'll socially amplify through the blog.
Right.
So the blog is really, again, that conduit to introducing myself to brands, and brands getting to know who I am. And they can navigate the blog and establish or determine if I'm the right person for their campaign. Right. And so, the mainstream of income would be working directly with brands that bring me on to be their spokesperson.
And then the blog also serves as, like you said, the digital face for the press and media and everyone to see what you're up to.
Absolutely.
And what you can create. Yeah.
Exactly. So the blog literally, which is now a website. I've stopped using the word blog a couple of years ago. But
it is a website. It's much more comprehensive.
Yeah. It's the House of Bren, houses Flamboyant Eats, which is the food arm. It houses Be So Chic, which is the beauty and lifestyle arm. And so anybody that's looking for a spokesperson that speaks a couple languages, or that, appeals to the urban woman, or that appeals to the Afro-Latina, or that appeals to the Spanish-speaking millennial, they can go to my website and see the different things that I do, how I've done them.
And that you're all of those things.
And that I'm all of those things. And I'm all of those things, and so they can determine if I'm the right fit for them or not. But which is why it's important for me to keep the website fresh and up to date and current.
Right. And I think one of the things you mentioned too, the importance of your site, or it was a blog, but now it has evolved into something else, and people shouldn't be afraid of that. Like, I started as a blog, it needs to stay X. It evolves as you evolve, and the things you do evolve.
Yeah, you can, as you grow as an individual, as an entrepreneur, and as you are going to experience failures. I mean, I have experienced a tremendous amount of failures, for sure. Some of them have been welcome. Some of them I've glossed over. Some of them I'm like, oh my God, like, did I really have to go through all of that? Why did that work out?
What's one of the, why did I have to go through that, or something that you wish someone had told you about entrepreneurship, or in general about your journey?
I wish somebody would have told me, because I didn't have this early on. I wish somebody would have told me to establish a solid group. And this is going to sound like I've been thinking of this, because it totally parallels, the point of support is sexy. I wish somebody would have told me back in 2005 how key it is to have a support group of people that not only get what you're doing, but totally believe in you and totally understand you. Not you as a brand, but you as a person. Because if they
Yeah.
understand and get you as a person, they're going to then support what you as a person want to do as a brand. And I didn't
Mm.
have that. And if I had that support where I could, go to this person for, hey, I don't know what to do when it comes to building my numbers, or hey, I don't know what to do when it comes to articulating my services better, or hey, I don't know what to do when it comes to aligning myself with, a renowned chef that could really serve as a mentor.
Right.
Because you can't do it all. And I have done it all by myself. And so, again, I would encourage anybody listening, and I don't care in what phase you're in, it is so key and it's so vital to the success of your business, no matter what stage of your business you're in, to really identify a core group of people that, again, not only get your brand or get your work, but get you at the core. Like, they understand you and they love you and they support you and they want you to be the best that you can, because those people will help you transition, and those people will help you explore and see that it's time for you to explore something else, and then help you figure out how to explore those things. And I didn't have that early on, and I totally wish that I did, because I could have avoided a lot of mistakes. I could have avoided a lot of time spent trying to figure it out when I didn't have to do it alone.
That's such, amazing advice. It does, of course, marry with the theme of what we're talking about. And one of the
Yeah,
reasons
but
I wanted to
it's
talk
so
to you,
true.
because it's so true. I love that you said, and also for people to know too, that it might not be the people who you think, right? Like, I talked to someone else, like, these might be the people who just support you around your business, or who just support you around a particular thing. It's not necessarily your family, or it can be family or friends. Like, I have friends who support me no matter what. They don't even understand really what I'm doing with the business, but
Yeah.
there might also be a group that's people who are in a similar business as you, or just support you in different ways.
Yeah, and I think that you have to nurture that relationship also. But if you're able to identify those people, and it doesn't always have to be women. I think women is,
Yeah.
and that's a whole other topic in terms of the power behind a group of women supporting women. But if you know that there is one person that can support you with, I'm going to be very specific, that can support you with video, then, foster that relationship, nurture that relationship, so that that person, no matter what, will walk this journey with you and be that support for you when it comes to your needs in video.
Right.
And so, again, it help comes in different ways. This person and I, in my case, we're not the best of friends, and he doesn't know me intimately. He doesn't know my intimate life. He doesn't necessarily understand my business either, but he supports me as a person.
Right.
He wants to see me succeed. And so he lends himself to me when it comes to video work, and whenever I need advice, or whenever I need a last minute edit put together. Again, he doesn't have to understand my day to day or the intricacies of my work, but he, at the core, again, believes in me.
Right.
So it's
So
definitely important to find those people.
did you eventually find, I mean, I know you mentioned this person, but do you feel like you now have that support that you need, or that are you continuing to build that? Or did I add you to the Support is Sexy Mastermind on Facebook? Did I add you to that?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Yeah, I will say that I haven't yet established. I've identified a few key people, but I haven't spent time, again, nurturing that relationship in terms of, how can we help each other where we're both benefiting from this? Because there are times when it's going to be a one way, and both people have to be okay with that. But there are times where it's very necessary that it's a two-way relationship where you both benefit from that kind of support. But yeah, I'm still in the process of identifying these people, because the other thing that we lose sight of, the same people that supported you 10 years ago are not necessarily the best people to support you now. As your business grows and as you grow, those same people may not know how to grow with you.
Right.
And
that's
so
okay.
you can't, yeah, and that's totally okay. And it's actually necessary. I can't expect the same people that were in my circle 10 years ago to be in my circle now. But you have to be aware of that. You have to know that, because if you're going to set yourself up, if you think that the same 10 people from 10 years ago are the same 10 people that you need now,
Right.
and they're not meeting your expectations, you're setting yourself up. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're as you evolve, your group of support needs to evolve with you too. Yeah, so I'm still creating my group today, because the people that I need as my support team now are not the same that I needed just 4 years ago. I mean, I need a very different set of people now.
Prayer and putting it out in the universe, and it
Yeah,
will all come
yeah.
to you. I'm telling you.
Oh, I believe it. I totally believe it.
So I have just a few more questions for you. I want to be conscious of your time. On June 10th, you wrote that you took Facebook off your phone for 3 months, and the
Hmm.
peace and energy regained.
Okay.
The peace and energy regained in not sharing all the small, big, meaningful tidbits, was a spiritual shower that you didn't know that you needed. So,
Hmm.
why do you think these spiritual showers are necessary for you?
I think because for me and what I do, I still have not put Facebook back on my phone, and will not. I don't miss it at all on my phone or any of my mobile devices. Um, I think the spiritual showers are important for me and what I do, because I'm in the public, right? So I'll do TV, or I'm being interviewed for this, that, and the other, or I'm constantly sharing my work because I want you to know what I'm doing. And so my mind is constantly infiltrated with, the reaction or the response that I'm getting from people of the work that I'm sharing. Uh, and I'm constantly seeing what's going on out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not giving my brain or my heart an opportunity to decompress and literally cleanse myself of all that I've heard. It could be all very good, but it's also infiltrated with some negativity or not so positive things that can affect the way that you process information, or it can affect the way that you feel about yourself on a certain day. And so it was very important for me, and is very important for me, to step away and literally cleanse myself spiritually, where I recenter myself with the Lord, and go through these fasts from certain things where I can be empty again in order to allow myself to be refilled with the things that I need. And so, yeah, when I took Facebook off, I needed to be completely uh, rid of all of this noise. And I'm not saying that the noise is bad, but it was just noise that was occupying a lot of space and taking a lot of energy out of me, which was keeping me from focusing on the things that I needed to for myself. And I was seeing it in the way that I was working on the book. I was pulled in too many ways, in too many areas, in too many directions, and I needed to just completely cleanse, go back to square one,
Right.
and be
Disconnect, sort
literally
of.
disconnect, be an empty vessel, and then fill that empty vessel with everything that I needed at the moment.
Very
And
good.
so I couldn't do that without having removed myself from all of that exterior stuff.
I love it. Now, you mentioned the book. Tell us about the book that's coming up this November, right?
Yeah, there's no, I'm excited.
Yay, me too. I
You
love
have a
it.
lot to do with this, Elaine. I don't know why you don't,
With
like
the
to
book?
take ownership of it. Well, just in my journey, just getting to
Oh,
the point of being able to have finally a voice where my expertise matters, that it matters enough to write a book. But yeah, I have a cookbook, modern pressure cooking, no
there
less,
you go.
uh,
It all leads
which
back to
is
pressure
it
cooking.
all leads back to pressure cooking. Yeah, so modern pressure cooking is a beautiful 250-page hardcover book on this amazing technique of cooking, which is now modernized. And so I have 100 plus recipes,
Mm.
all of them made in the pressure cooker, both stovetop and electric, which is, the very on trend thing right now. Everyone's raving about these electric pressure cookers. But they're both modern. The stovetop is modern in that, it has nothing to do with these vintage ones where the jiggler or the regulator would pop off. And so, yeah, I'm excited because I have all of these recipes that are fresh and funky and sexy and cool. And some of them are 6 minutes long and some of them are an hour long,
Mm.
but they're all a really great invitation for anybody, a college student, a millennial, a young single mother, a young single father, a young single woman, a diva that's on the run but wants to be conscious about how she's eating at home, a young family, an older couple, baby boomers. I mean, it literally appeals to anybody that is inquisitive enough or interested enough in learning and relearning pressure cooking. So, yeah, it'll come out November. I think the first week of November.
Awesome. You'll have to let me know
I'll
the date once you
yeah,
know.
yep. I'll be doing some TV and some, live cooking demos at the different bookstores and the different, food stores like Sur La Table and places like that.
I
And
can.
hopefully launching a national tour. But yeah, this book has been, a 10-year overnight success, if you will. It's
Right.
taken me
Right.
this amount of time. It's taken this long to actually put this, to put this together. Literally 9, 10, 12 months to make the book happen. But it's been a labor of love in so many different areas over the span of 10 years to get to the point where somebody came to me and said, "Hey, we'd love to publish a book on pressure cooking."
I love that. And this is all your
Yeah.
recipes and things that you created and styled and all of
Yep.
that.
Yep.
I'm so
100%
proud of
my
you.
food. Yeah. Thanks. The publishing company has been extremely supportive. They gave me a photographer. He came down from New York. And we did 5 grueling days of photo shoots every
Mm-hmm.
day, 17-hour days, just grinding and banging out these recipes, um, and photographing them and styling them. So yeah, 100% of this book was my work. And I have to say that I had an amazing team in the photographers. I had 2 photographers, and the stylist was the former director of food production at the Today Show.
Oh,
And timing just worked out. I'm gonna, that's a post that I want to reserve to share, closer to the book coming out. But just again, timing was everything with how she was available to come down and help me style this book. And I couldn't have asked for a better person to do that with me.
that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, so that story is going to be really fun sharing, which will underscore the importance of believing that God's blueprint is always better than ours and how
Mm.
timing is everything.
Timing
Honestly, it
is
is.
everything.
Yeah,
It really
it's
is.
everything.
Well, it has been fun. So you mentioned me along the journey. I don't know you, it's all
Yeah.
you, but it has been fun to watch you. I'm always like, Bren, what about this? Or we text each other
Well,
late at
no,
night, or
yeah.
Bren, why don't you do this? And what about that? And think about this. And so it's just
Well,
been,
that right there. I mean, you believed in my writing, a long
yeah,
time ago with Latina, and so, somebody has to believe in me in order for them to take me, to help me get to the next place. So if nobody believes in me,
I believe in you,
uh,
girl.
yeah, I know you do, girl. And so, that was like 2000, like 2009, 2010.
Yep.
So yeah, you have very much been a part of this
Oh,
journey. Absolutely, girl. I
it's a
mean,
pleasure.
yeah, for sure. You gave me my first column. So,
Yeah.
hey,
Oh, hey, I didn't even know. Look at that. I didn't
yeah,
even know that. That's great. Well, I said all that to say, not about me, but just that it really has been or is fun to just watch you and be there and, cheer you on. So I know it's going to be great when the book comes out and everything else. So happy. So just a couple more
I'm so
questions. What's the greatest lesson having a business has taught you about yourself as a woman?
happy. Girl, ladies, women, we can do this. Like, this whole, and that's a whole other conversation, honestly, about how badass we are and how amazing, we really are. And we shouldn't let anybody else define, our abilities or let anybody else define what we're able to do. And so, there's this very real talk about, inequality in pay. And there's this real talk about how we're treated differently in the workplace. But guess what? When you work for yourself, you establish all of that. You establish your worth. You establish, what your terms are.
Mm,
And if it doesn't work out, it's on you to go back and figure out why it didn't work out. So you're the only one held accountable for how much you make or how much you can demand from somebody. So if a brand wants to pay me X, Y, and Z, I'm very keen on going to see what they're paying my non-brown peer, if you will,
mm-hmm.
or a peer that's in the same realm of what I'm doing. And so it's very important that you understand what your self-worth is. That is one of the best things that I could tell you that I've learned about myself working for myself, is that I don't allow anybody else to determine what my worth is. Because when you allow somebody else to determine your worth, then you'll fall into that hole of limiting yourself to what they say you're worth and what your value is. And you shouldn't ever let anybody else tell you what your value is. Only you know how much work you've put into it. Only you know how much you've invested into yourself and into your business, and into your craft and into your product. And so to let somebody else determine that for you is a huge disservice to yourself, and a huge, you're in that you're telling yourself that you have not worked hard, and that what you have produced is not worthy of what you think it is.
Right. That's such a
So
good lesson.
I've learned that about myself. I struggled for years, accepting what somebody else wanted to pay me based on what the going rate was for somebody who doesn't even have half of my skill set or half
Right.
of
And we're
my.
sometimes nervous to speak up and say,
Yeah.
this is what I want.
No, this is what I want. And so I've learned for myself that I'm very much okay turning down a gig, even though I really need that money. I really need that check, but I'm really okay with turning it down, because if I accept it, then I'm establishing, precedent, and I'm establishing that it's okay to lessen my value or lower my
Right.
values. So I'm okay with walking away knowing that in the end I'm letting you know that I'm worth more than that.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, if you think over your life and your career and you had a chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would it be and what would you say?
Honestly, my mother. I know it's so cliche, but um, I can't even complete a sentence without getting emotional about how supportive my mom continues to be. And, during the cookbook process, it was so, oh gosh, I don't mean to get choked up. It was so challenging because I was completely exhausted. There were long days. It was my first time doing this. I didn't know what to expect. Nobody told me that it was going to be this difficult. But my mother, being as amazing as she is, she would send me voicemails singing. And it could be just something that was on the radio playing, or something that she literally wrote in her head, because she's really good at just kind of improvising and just kind of like freestyling, right? So she would call me and leave voicemails singing. And everything had to do with, I can do it, and you got this, and you just need to trust God, and you need to know that he simply would not have brought you here if he didn't think that you could do it. And so you need to, put your big girl panties on and believe everything that I've taught you as a little girl, apply it now, and believe that he wouldn't have given you this if he didn't think that you could do it, and if he didn't have the resources for you to complete it. So I need you to get it together and keep it moving. And so she honestly, literally would send me these voicemails or these text messages, or just show up with flowers, because she knows how much I love flowers. So those little things are priceless in helping me, or having helped me literally keep it moving and stick to what the plan was. And so she's, an absolute vital piece to my success. Unequivocally, unapologetically, very much every bit of my success has to do with my mom.
I love it. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now tell us, what is a way, what's a way that we can support you? I know the book is coming out. I'll have links to everything that's available at the time that this goes up. Anything else you want us to know about products that you're working on? I'm pushing you to do a product line eventually.
I know we talked about this. For now, everything is just on brenherrera.com. I haven't been, we talked about consistency, but the book has been a really beautiful, I wouldn't say escape, but it's been a really beautiful break from the everyday cooking and the everyday blogging, because I've had to focus so passionately and so diligently on the book. And so I'm only now getting back to writing again for the website. So I would say, I would love the support in terms of, following up with me on social, see what I'm doing on Instagram. I just got on Snapchat and I'm having way too much fun on Snapchat.
Oh my God. I saw some of your snaps on, I saw it on Instagram, but yes, so funny.
Snapchat has me acting like a mess. I got a couple characters on Snapchat, Big Lip Linda and Kim. Kim is from Alabama. I've got these characters that allow me
part of
to
the entertainer in you.
Yeah, and it just happened. It honestly
So
just
funny.
happened. And so, Snapchat is that one outlet where I can be business, but I can also be completely free spirited and show people a side of me you have never in your life seen, but is organically me.
What are you on Snapchat?
Uh,
I'll have it linked up, but is it Bren Herrera
yeah,
or
it's
okay?
Bren Herrera 7, the number 7. Somebody had Bren Herrera, she wouldn't give it back to me.
Okay.
I asked her for it, and she blocked me on Snapchat.
She's like,
Uh,
no, leave me alone.
she's like, "Who was this psycho asking me for that name?" But yeah, and just if you're the praying kind, that it be revealed to me what my next step is with my brand, because it all can't just be the website and the book. TV has been something that I have been actively and fervently pursuing for the last 8 years, and I've had a lot of propositions and a lot of connections made, and a lot of interviews, and a lot of casting opportunities, but nothing has really, nothing has worked just yet. But it's still something that is very much what I want to do, and I know I know I'm supposed to be in that place, in that
Right.
space.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you're the praying kind, lift a sister up in that way. And the products, I eventually want to come out with pressure cookers and espresso makers, and
Yes.
maybe like the baddest, luggage line, because I travel so much, and I
Ooh, I like
I know
that.
very. Isn't that nice? Like, a collection of luggage that speaks to the trendy modern woman, that is always on the go and has to cover, different areas of travel.
Maybe
I
somebody
know
will
it
be listening
really,
that'll
really
hear
does.
that. You never
Yeah.
know. You can collaborate with
I,
somebody or
because
partner.
yeah, 'cause every time I'm traveling, it's like I figure out, oh my gosh, like this bag just does not have this element, and I really need it. Or this suitcase doesn't have this, and it's missing this. Or, there's always something that I'm realizing could be better in a suitcase, or a laptop bag, or an overnight bag, or,
I'm trying to think of somebody I can connect you with. I'll
yeah,
we'll talk about that offline.
yeah,
Um,
sure.
so lastly, well, thank you so much for doing this, taking time out of your evening to sit with me. And I know we had to reschedule, and it's
Oh,
always
it's
great,
my
great to
pleasure.
chat with you. We chat like a half an hour before we actually do the interview.
Hmm.
So it's always great. And like I said, I'm so proud of you and all the things you're doing and how you represent and present everything that you're all about. So I know it's all going to work out beautifully in the end.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate the constant
Yes.
support. And, I'm here too. If there's anybody that, I obviously have a lot of contacts when it comes to food and the food industry and the travel industry. Those are my two very present fortes, and the two industries that I'm very involved in. So I'm open to bouncing ideas, and
After the book
just
comes out.
connecting. Yeah, after the book comes out, please give me until
You need some time.
like December. Yeah, because it's
Exactly,
gonna
exactly.
be crazy. I get like 2 weeks off for just like me, and then the heavy promotion and the PR
It's gonna
and the media
be
relations, that all picks up in a couple of weeks. So it's
yeah.
gonna get crazy.
After that.
But
So
yeah, for sure, you all know where to reach me, and I'm happy to extend myself where I can also.
awesome.
Because
So
yes, support is sexy.
yes it is. Now
Yeah.
what's a parting piece of advice you have for us?
Um, well, I always like to say that you have to start your day and end your day with prayer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so key. And the reason I say that is because in the morning, you never know what your challenges may be throughout the day. So if you spend a couple of minutes just thanking the Lord for the day, but also asking Him to be very, very much beside you as you deal with the different challenges that may present themselves that you weren't necessarily ready for. So to give you clarity, to give you diligence, to give you understanding, to give you balance, and all those things necessary to deal with your day. I think it's a really, for me, it's been really helpful starting out my day in that manner. Then to really believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, it's going to be really difficult for others to believe in you. And if others don't believe in you, it makes it really difficult for you to get to the next place of your journey that you're supposed to be on.
Right. Excellent. Bren,
Yeah.
thank you so much. You're amazing. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Elayne. I love you. I
Love
appreciate
you.
you, sis.
Hold on one second.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to that episode of the Support is Sexy podcast. And I do hope that you got some inspiration from it. And the challenge is for you to do at least one thing. Take one thing from the episode, at least one thing. You can always do more, but at least one thing that will help you move one step closer to your dream. Whether that's launching a business, writing a book, whatever that thing is that you want to do, take something from this episode and move one step closer. And what I'll also ask of you, if you can tell me what you think about the episodes, what we've been doing, what you want to hear, what you like, what you experience while you're listening, go over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let me know what's going on. What are you thinking? What are you feeling about the show? What else can I do to be of service to you, which is what this is all about, to be of support to you. That's our buzzword, right? You can also go to my website, elaynefluker.com/podcast. So that's ELAYNEFLUKER.com/podcast. Hear more episodes there. Also have a bunch of great videos, tons of information. It's where I'm going to be spending a lot of time, and it's where I love to connect with you. So again, thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your support. And the most important thing I want you to remember is having it all does not mean doing it all alone. So now, go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.